That's how you close off your pre-season preparations with a bang, right Reds? Now it's safe to say that these games, especially the first three, were interesting to watch. We saw different experiments from Slot like the double tens playing against Betis. We also had some hints at how Liverpool will be playing next season with a slow build-up phase and the press baiting. However, in the first three matches, the new manager didn't have all of his available players, which is why we saw all those experiments. Today against Sevilla though, it was a completely different story. So in case you missed the game, or even if you did watch it, join us as we dissect Liverpool's final pre-season game, of course not including the other Las Palmas one taking place behind closed doors. Hit that like and subscribe button and let us jump straight into it. As we said, we couldn't conclude something definite from our previous three friendlies because of how Slot kept experimenting with his squad, given the lack of many first-team players available. However, today we saw different familiar faces available for selection, so let us discover the starting 11. We can all agree that Kelleher has done more than enough to prove that he deserves to stay in the squad and maybe have a shot to become a first-team goalkeeper. It started with his performances last season and continued throughout pre-season tour, but for now, Alisson will probably always be the number one as he made his return between the posts. The back four saw two familiar faces step in alongside Jurgen and Tsimikas, who featured in all pre-season games. These two players were Trent Alexander-Arnold and Virgil van Dijk. The midfield trio consisted of Ryan Gravenberch, Dominik Szoboszlai, and the two-time Copa America winner Alexis Mac Allister. Meanwhile, the front trio was formed of Mohamed Salah, Diogo Jota, and the returning Luis Diaz. Four key players returned to the starting lineup, which popped some questions into our minds. How will Slot use Trent and Virgil van Dijk? Will Mac Allister form the double pivot alongside Gravenberch? Well, let us jump into our game analysis to understand what actually happened. As always, the lineup might look like it's a basic 4-3-3, however, as we kept saying throughout pre-season, the team shape completely changed both in and out of possession. Today we saw Liverpool consistently build up in a 4-2-4 build-up shape with Jurgen keeping his place at right centre-back and Van Dijk slotting in on the left-hand side of the defensive core. Both Trent Alexander-Arnold and Tsimikas continued the trend used by Slot of staying deep and narrow instead of high and wide, which helps the Reds gain numerical superiority in the first phase. The double pivot, as you can see, was formed by both Ryan Gravenberch and Alexis Mac Allister, with the Dutchman being the deepest of the two players, as always creating those staggered midfield lines to help with the ball progression into the central areas. Now, we just mentioned how both fullbacks stayed deep and narrow, which is where things start to get interesting, especially with how Slot used Trent, who featured for the first time under the new manager. See, despite using the 4-2 as a main shape, the Reds continue to show their flexibility as they transform to a 3-2 build-up on either side of the pitch. Here you can see Tsimikas tuck inside to form the back three when the build-up shape shifts to the left-hand side while Trent pushes on the right-hand side. On the flip side of the coin, Trent tucked inside to form a back three with Kostas pushing higher up the pitch. See, this way of using a base of four defenders in the build-up shape with both fullbacks taking a turn to advance will also be important for how Trent will play under Slot. See, when being deep and narrow, Trent will be capable of both inverting into the midfield and stretching the pitch by pulling towards the touchline. Also, this will stop the player from receiving with his back to the opposition's line, which is where he is the most vulnerable. Instead, Trent will almost always receive facing the play, where he can break opponents' lines or destroy their blocks with his passing. Not only that, but by having the possibility to get high and wide, Trent will be constantly capable of making overlapping and underlapping runs, supporting Salah in the final third. Here you can see the player's average position, which shows exactly what we're talking about. See, in this way we get the best out of Trent's two worlds, his passing range, vision and quality from deep, but also his creativity in the final third, which was on full display when he put in a cross for Diogo Jota's opener. Now, talking about that goal, how clean was the strike from Jota? Hitting on the volley couldn't have even been better, as Jota undoubtedly scored our best goal in this pre-season. The question here is, do you think Jota should be our starting number 9 going into the new season? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Another important thing to note is how Gravenberch was used during this game. The Dutchman, as we said earlier, was the deepest of the double pivots and had the most touches of the ball compared to the other midfielders and forwards. He might not have had a world-class showing, but it's sure that he did his job. However, what's even more important is that Grav played in a kind of similar way to how Martin Zubimendi does for Real Sociedad. Are we going to dive into this in today's video? Unfortunately not, and that's because we have a special deep dive about Zubimendi coming soon. One that will bring you everything you need to know about the new potential midfielder. Now moving on to our second goal, this one can give a clear picture of slot ball. See, the sequence started here after Liverpool stopped a Sevilla counter-attack. You can see that the build-up phase was taking place in a considerably higher area on the pitch, which meant that Sevilla's block was compact and deep. Here, instead of looking for that line-breaking pass like we used to, the Reds circulated the ball back with short passes and into their own penalty box, drawing Sevilla's block. Once space was created in central areas, Alisson went for the long ball towards Diogo Jota, who's more than capable in the air. It was a matter of winning the ball there, and once that's done, slots Liverpool can literally kill any team due to how explosive the offensive players are, as we can quickly take advantage of the space created. This is what happened here, as Diaz found himself in acres of space and ended up in a 1v1 situation before launching a thunder strike into the net. This goal and the sequence leading up to it shows exactly what slot ball is capable of. It's a mixture of slow, delicate build-up that helps create space by inviting the press, or with having that direct edge to exploit areas in behind. The quickness in how the team transitions between the phases is just frightening for the oppositions. The third goal also showed exactly this, while also using the familiar pattern that we discussed in an earlier video, the up, back and through pattern. This starts with a simple goal kick, and you can see how Sevilla's players were intending of pressing us high. Using a flat back four and having the double pivots drop deep, it looked like Liverpool were about to initiate their usual build-up phase of circulating the ball around. But again, Alisson, after pulling the strikers towards him and disguising his action, he went for the long ball, which is the first up pass of our pattern. Using his physicality, Salah managed to reach the ball first, to lay it down to Jota, completing the back pass in this pattern. Meanwhile, Dominik Szoboszlai made a powerful third-man run into the space behind. Here, Jota closed the pattern with a through ball towards the space, which Szoboszlai met and continued to drive the ball into the box to provide Diaz with the assist for the third goal. Now, we discussed this pattern in full detail in a recent video, so do make sure you check it out, because based on our friendly games, we're going to see this approach plenty more times going into the new season. The fourth goal was simply a thing of beauty, and that is mainly because it was Trey Nyoni's first ever one for the senior team. The 17-year-old talent showed once again why he's rated this highly, coming into the pitch with high confidence, which was evident by the way he took his shot for his goal. Now, there's one more thing that we need to talk about, and that is the Reds' out-of-possession approach and how crucial both Dominik Szoboszlai and Alexis Mac Allister are in this regard. See, the Reds, as expected, implemented a high-pressing approach that became man-to-man at times. However, the main shape was the 4-2-4, with one of the front four making the jump whenever the ball hits the target area. The main objective was to force Sevilla out wide and stop their central progression. Now, once the initial line of press was bypassed, the two fullbacks immediately joined the press on wide areas to stop Sevilla from advancing. Here it was Mac Allister who jumped from the double pivot to reinforce the press. Meanwhile, it was Dominik Szoboszlai who covered for Mo Salah, which might be a hint of how Slot will try to get the best out of the Egyptian by keeping him fresh, since he will not be capable of intensely pressing for a full 90 minutes, week in and week out, but also by allowing him to cheat his defensive duties and stay high to provide that transition threat. Both Maka and Szoboszlai had the highest number of tackles amongst all players on the pitch, with 5 and 4 respectively. The pair also combined for 11 defensive actions in total, which shows how important they are to Slot's out-of-possession approach. That was literally how to close off a pre-season with a bang. Sure, it wasn't the perfect game, as mistakes can happen. For example, the Reds' press was disjointed at times, which opened up too much space for our liking. However, these are coachable matters that we have no doubt that Arne Slot will address. The Dutchman is a perfectionist, and winning with this scoreline will not easily impress him, so expect to see more from the Reds going into the new campaign. Now, by the time the video is up, we hope that the second team would have done well to impress against Las Palmas. That way, Slot will have multiple options to pick from for our first Premier League game. So for now, it comes over to you. Who do you think should start under Slot next week? Who are your best performers according to you? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. And remember, if you enjoyed today's video, do consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more. Thank you. I'll see you next time. Take care. Peace.